Well, y'all can watch this on the replay. Hopefully, they watch it. It is 3:51 in the morning where I'm located. I am in southern Pennsylvania in a southerly direction. I got to get down to Florida tomorrow, but I'm usually the last to know about this kind of thing. I got the news last night that old Henry Kissinger passed away, who just celebrated his 100th birthday a couple weeks ago. You ever notice that the most evil people in the world get to live long, healthy lives? It's strange. But as Bruce Springsteen would say, only the good die young. And that's true. Because back in the 60s, I remember people who would say, hey, give peace a chance, let's love one another. Dead. They killed them. What do I mean by that? JFK was one, Dr. King was one, John Lennon was another. We can't have people talk about peace and love one another and get along. No, we got to let the ones that control the throne want everybody to kill each other. And Mr. Kissinger was one of them. I'm not going to tell him to rest in peace because I highly doubt he is. But he's going to have to. He's answering for what he did. And for those who don't know, you're going to hear about it in the next few days, especially today. Everybody's talking about bringing him up on charges of war crimes. Why didn't you do this years ago? The man was 100 years old and just passed away. Now you want to do it? Well, what use is it to try to bring him to justice when the man's dead? The only thing we can do now is make sure we don't name anything after him, like a hospital, a school, a highway, what have you. If you want to name anything after Henry Kissinger, let's make it the presidential toilet and put a plaque on it. That's about how I would make any dedication to that asshole. Why I call him that? Well, 58,000 of my parents' generation died because of a lie. Just Americans alone, thanks to him and Robert McNamara, the decisions that were made with the Agent Orange, Vietnam. But Henry Kissinger's goes a lot deeper. If you look it up, Google this. But I don't trust Google entirely. The most bombed country on this planet is Cambodia. Who ordered it? Where targets were chosen was Henry Kissinger's idea. Henry Kissinger bombed or ordered the bombing of a lot of people, a lot of villages, a lot of civilians. But they want to bring them up on war crimes now. It's like, oh boy, that ain't really going to do anything. The man's dead. It's useless. Why didn't you do it years ago when he did do these things? This man should have been brought up on war crime charges back in the late 60s when he was in his 40s and 50s. Then you should have done it. But no, we let these people that are totally guilty, let them live out long, healthy lives. Another one was George H.W. Bush. He got to live until he got into his 90s. How you doing, Ellie? I'm just glancing over, just glancing over for a second because I'm driving. But Henry Kissinger, I wanted to tell you about Hollywood. Whenever they did a movie about the Russians, and you saw those leaders, that the actors that played them, of the Russian leaders, I call it the Henry Kissinger voice. They tried to convince all American people that these Russians were evil people, and The one of the actor, I can't remember his name. I'm going to point out if you're familiar. If you ever seen uh, like Austin Powers, I think he was in that, if I remember correctly. But he had a deep, cracky voice that sounded evil. They always had that actor played one of the Russian leaders to scare the shit out of all the American people. No, 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 no. That's Henry Kissinger that they're copying right there. You know, here you're on YT. Look up the videos of Henry Kissinger's, interviews or whatever. Listen to that man talk. It's like, wait a minute. It's all ass backwards. And when it talked about controlling history and saying things that didn't exist, like back in when I was a kid in the '80s during the Cold War, they tried to tell me that the Russians were very controlling and blah blah this and blah blah that, and then come to find out later on, it was us that we were doing the same thing. It's a lesson that was taught by one interesting individual of historic significance that I find very interesting was Reichsmarshal Goering. And he said it so well. If you want to discredit somebody or make them look bad, you blame them for the very same thing that you're doing. There's a lot you can learn about his autobiography. Reichsmarshal Goering. I believe this. If Reichsmarshal Goering came to power early on, and replaced Hitler, Germany would have been totally different. Goering had to go along with what De Fuhrer said. Well, Reichsmarshal Goering did not agree on a lot of things that Hitler ordered. Tried to tell him, you don't want to do this. He goes, sure, we may be successful, but we'll pay for it later on. There's interesting things you can find out in history instead of having people tell you if you read it for yourself. But this is about Henry Kissinger. The only thing we can do, folks, it's let him go to the dustbin of history. When he died, he was judged. Hey, I can care less what happened to that man. Not only to the 58,000 soldiers that we lost here, but he's killed millions of people over in Cambodia and a lot in Southeast Asia during that era because of a lie. And if you want to know who benefited, you always got to look at who benefits from these sort of things. Well, General Dynamics was one of them, and a company, if you want to look it up, called Brown and Root. They really benefited from that. That's what made that company, Brown and Root. But you would know them today as Halliburton. And that leads to our former Vice President, Dickhead Cheney. I'm sorry, Dick Cheney. Yeah, Brown and Root got a lot of contracts to steal a lot of resources out of those countries during and a little bit after the war. But the ones that really made off as bandits was General Dynamics, because they made the brand new F-111 fighter back then. But you got to think these, General Dynamics, Raytheon, BA, and a couple others I can't remember off the top of my head. If there's no conflict going on, they're not making money. So they need people to kill each other to make money. And we were warned about this. Dwight D. Eisenhower, when he left office as president of the United States, 5-star general. He was the commander of the European theater of World War II. Became president. He warned us about the military-industrial complex. We didn't listen, and we still are paying for it and painfully going through it today. And so are a lot of other people. Entire families getting wiped out. I knew that hey, Ellie, I knew that ceasefire wasn't going to last. Immediately when it was over, they bombed them. And now the news will tell you, and they have no proof of this, saying that as soon as it was over, Hamas launched a bunch of rockets. That's a lie. That is a lie. I will not believe what the media says. No, no, no. As soon as it was over, they launched some fighters that had bombs on it and just started bombing Gaza again. They ain't going to pull the wool over my eyes. Because Raytheon and General Dynamics are going to make a lot of money because they're going to keep shipping bombs and all kinds of crap over to Israel to kill a bunch of brown people. Because they can make a lot of money. And who's going to pay for it? Yep, you guessed it. Me and every other American is going to flip the bill for that. Seems fair, don't it? And it's being done in our names, and I don't like it. That's why I made that live stream, I think a week or two ago. I do not agree with what our leadership is doing. I'm against it. So they're doing it without my approval. So that makes me a victim of circumstance. I will have nothing to do with the genocidal murder over there. And people want to talk about the Bible. Okay, let's talk about the Bible. Turn to Romans. This has already been discussed in that section. And it points out that what's going on over there is the synagogue of Satan. And a lot of Jewish people know this. That's why a lot of Jewish people didn't pack up and move to Israel. But Henry Kissinger lived to be 100 years old, and he had his claws in everything. But I'm laughing because these people coming forward that like it's something new. Like Henry Kissinger did all these war crimes and everything. Like, where the fuck have you been since the late 1960s? When he always had a cushy job in D.C. in the 60s and 70s and part of the 80s. Every president wanted him in his cabinet of some fashion or another. And we could never get rid of that evil bastard. Well, I'll tell you what, the world is a better place without him. And it couldn't have happened more sooner. It should have happened years ago. But everybody's going to have to watch the replay on this. I just wanted to do it short and give people my thoughts on Henry Kissinger. C'est la vie is all I got to say. You know, let's not name or dedicate anything after him except for the presidential toilet. That's what I would probably put a plaque on it. And oh yeah, about the presidents. Back in the day, every newly elected president, after I think a year or 6 months in, they hang the former president's painting on the wall somewhere in the White House, and Trump just stood there as Obama's was leaning against the wall on the floor. He really didn't want to address it, and he didn't do anything with it. I don't know what happened to that painting, but it showed his racism, is what it is. And if I was Joe Biden, now I got Donald Trump's painting. Where am I going to hang it? No question about it. I'd be like, that goes in the presidential bathroom right above the toilet. And there it'll stay as long as I'm living here in the White House. Because that's where it belongs, right above the toilet. Or across from the toilet on the wall, so when you're sitting taking a shit, you can look at that bastard and relieve yourself. But narcissists like him don't think of things like that. Like, okay, what do you think is going to happen to you if the wrong person gets in the White House? What they're going to do to your painting? Uh, anyway, thanks for joining me, Ellie. I count on somebody to come in here while I'm doing a live. But I'm going to end this. I hope you shared some information. Y'all have a good early morning, night, wherever you're at. You have a good day. Bye bye.